Hey, 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 welcome to Eat Out at Home, the podcast. This is the place for foodies who want to learn how to cook better, eat healthier, dine together, and enjoy some gourmet every day. I'm your host, Chef Evelyn, and on this podcast, I share with you my best chef secrets that I've learned from teaching thousands of people how to cook via online and in-person cooking classes, healthy eating workshops, and from my well-seasoned career in the culinary field. Listen, I've been cooking for over 20 years, so I know my way around the kitchen. If you're ready to spice things up in that department, then just consider me your secret ingredient. So, if you're ready, sit back, relax, grab a snack, and let's dive right in. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Eat Out at Home, the podcast. And in this episode, I wanted to talk about 5 things that I'm doing this year to make cooking at home more enjoyable. And if you're anything like me, you love cooking, but sometimes it can feel like a little bit of a chore when you are cooking at home consistently. And in a recent episode, I shared about how one of my Eat Out at Home goals for this year is to cook at home consistently 6 days a week, which is quite a feat. And so right now I average about 4 to 5 days. Some weeks I'm 7, some weeks I'm 6. But if I average it out, I'm about 4 to 5 days a week, and I really want to up that. And so I got to asking myself, what can I do or stop doing to make that process more fun, more enjoyable, and feel more like playtime, feel more like recreation, feel more like the hobby that it used to be before it became my profession. And I thought I'd share some of that with you. And then also I'd love to hear if there are things that you might be doing this year to make cooking at home more consistently more enjoyable. So let's get right into it. And so the number one thing that I'm no longer doing, which I have a tendency to slide into this if I'm not careful, is I am eliminating all restrictions on what I consume. My general rule of thumb is if it is naturally occurring in nature, then I can eat it. And so that makes life a lot easier. Now, I've talked before about how I have an ingredient only kitchen and pantry. So I don't have a lot of processed foods. I don't have a lot of prepackaged foods just naturally. That's just not what I like to eat or what I purchase. So I'm pretty good there. But I had started to get, a little bit more restrictive and a little bit more contained. And that really doesn't work for me. That causes me to kind of ebb and flow from one extreme to another. And so this year I really wanted to focus on, the goal is to cook out at home 6 days a week, but what's going to make that enjoyable is that there's no limits. There's no rules. If it's naturally occurring in nature, I can eat it, right? I can enjoy it, and I'm going to do so guilt-free. So the second thing, and this is something that really came to me recently, is getting back to cookbooks. I used to be a huge cookbook collector, and I can't tell you the last time I cracked open a cookbook. Now, part of that is because I really don't cook with recipes unless I'm baking. And, part of that is just, having been in transition for a long time. I also did an episode last year talking about how I went basically 7 years without cooking, and how now my love of cooking has returned and what I'm doing to nurture that. And so part of that when I wasn't cooking is I also wasn't looking at or using cookbooks. And so I know we have the internet and we have Pinterest and we have Instagram and things like that, and people are sharing amazing recipes, but I really want to get back to cookbooks that are about like philosophies around food, formulas, world cuisines, 5-star chefs, things like that. And, really lean into that. A lot of the content on let's say Pinterest or social media are from food bloggers, which the talented individuals, people who can cook very well. But I'm looking to go a step above that for me, just as a professional chef. And so I want to revisit the cookbooks that I currently have. And then I also really want to delve into some new cookbooks. As a matter of fact, I recently did a video about some of the top cookbooks I want to add to my collection. So if you are not checking out the YouTube channel, I encourage you to do so because there's also lots of fun foodish content over there. But yeah, really want to get back to cookbooks. And I get this from my grandmother. I remember growing up, my grandmother was an amazing cook because she baked not to save her life. May she rest in peace. Okay. That's how I actually started baking. But she had so many cookbooks and so many magazine clippings and article clippings that when she passed, I remember I had, those huge plastic storage tubs. I had tubs and tubs and tubs of her cookbooks and things like that had like her handwriting in them and modifications that she made to recipes. And, that was such a treasure for me to have that I was like, I want to have that. I want to be able to annotate my cookbooks. And I did that for years and then I stopped doing that. So getting back to cookbooks and really getting back to trying a variety of different cuisines is something that's going to make cooking at home extremely fun for me. So the next thing, number 3 that I'm going to be doing this year is I really want to get back into purchasing really unique and exotic ingredients or ingredients new to me, making sure that I am shopping at a variety of places, particularly online, particularly ethnic grocery stores, specialty purveyors, ingredients that are not necessarily widely available, maybe have to be ordered online, maybe have to be ordered from overseas, and I always joke and say, I am not the chef for you if you're looking for 30-minute meals. I am not the chef for you if you're looking for meals that don't require a stand mixer or a specialty piece of equipment. I am not the chef for you if you're looking for 15-minute meals, or if you're looking for things that don't require special ingredients that you can get at, your local big box store. I like variety. I say this all the time. There's too much good food in the world to eat the same thing over and over and over again. And so for me to really enjoy cooking, I definitely want to branch out. I used to do it all the time. I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in college, I went to Tuskegee University for my engineering degrees. And Tuskegee University is basically in the middle of Nowheresville, Alabama. It's about 30 minutes south of Montgomery via highway and about 15 minutes away from Auburn University. So we didn't even have a Walmart, okay? And this was in the early 2000s. And I remember my mom would send me kind of like an allowance for my bills, right? Like, for my apartment rent, for groceries, utilities, electronics, all of that kind of stuff. But I would get excited. And there was this one little specialty grocery store in Montgomery, Alabama. I think it was called Bruno's at the time. Or let me say this. And I don't even know if it was a specialty grocery store. I just knew it had more to offer than what I could get at the local Walmart that was in Auburn. Okay. And so I remember I would go up there and I would buy different vinegars and oils and cheeses to the point where I would have spent up my living allowance. And so I remember I had spent it all up one time and my mother was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm buying groceries." And when she realized that I was buying quote unquote gourmet food, she was like, "Listen, you don't have to necessarily be eating ramen noodles and struggling with food. However, you need to make sure that you are budgeting accordingly." So I have always had an affinity towards, interesting or exotic ingredients and things like that and having them on hand. I just feel like there's so many wonderful things in the world to try, and I want to try as many as pique my interest. So that's also going to make cooking at home for me really, really exciting. I just get drawn to those types of things. The fourth thing is I want to get back to experimenting. Sometimes for me, and you can let me know if you are similar to this, when I'm trying to cook at home consistently, sometimes I just get in the habit of like cooking what I know or cooking in formulas that I know. I talk a lot about how I love a good soup or a stew or a one pot meal. And so while I may not make the same one over and over again, I'm making similar type dishes. And I really want to get back to experimenting in the kitchen. One of the things that I loved about teaching cooking classes over the years was just the sheer volume of different types of cuisines and recipes that I was exposed to, the different types of classes that I was writing. And ironically, I still have every menu from every cooking class that I've ever taught for the past 15 plus years. I have a huge storage tub of all of them printed out. And so I really want to get back into experimenting with different cuisines. Right now I have a very strong affinity for equatorial foods, so foods from around the equator. So when you think about countries that are around the equator, I am like really feeling those cuisines right now as far as my savory foods. And then I'm still drawn to my French pastry, desserts, and then also wanting to kind of branch out and see, okay, outside of European desserts, what other kind of desserts am I into? But I really want to get back to experimenting and going deeper into cuisines that I'm fairly familiar with, but not as educated in them as I would like to be. And then the last thing that I'm going to be doing to make cooking at home more enjoyable this year, and I talked about this in my Eat Out at Home goals for the new year, is I want to entertain a lot more. And not necessarily, it doesn't have to be these necessarily huge like dinner parties or holiday celebrations, even though I don't mind those, but just a random Friday night, a random dinner, nothing fancy. The most decorations on the table might be a vase of flowers, and having people over for dinner. I kind of want to bring back that culture. I'm going to be talking a lot about that this year, about just really getting together with people when it comes to food. A lot of us are missing third spaces. A lot of us are not together. A lot of people are eating in isolation, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be super expensive. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It doesn't have to be like 5 courses. It just needs to be delicious, and it just needs to be intentional and together. And so for me, having the opportunity to share that with friends and family and things like that is really, really exciting. And so I think I want to average about maybe 1 to 2 Friday night dinners per month. That would be awesome for me, just to have people over, make something delicious. There's always going to be a dessert if it's me. And I just want to get back to that. And let me know, are you someone who likes to entertain, likes to have people over for lunch or dinner? I mean, it doesn't even have to be a Friday night dinner. It could be a Sunday afternoon dinner. It could be a Saturday morning brunch. It could be, a random Tuesday, which is like, hey, somebody had a couple of busy days, and you just invite them over for like, chicken piccata and a salad, right? Like, it's so simple. So I'm actually really, really excited about that. That makes me excited to cook again. That makes me excited to cook at home. It makes me excited to shop for new ingredients, to try new recipes, to really lean into the lifestyle that is eating out at home. So let me know, what do you do to make sure that you don't get burnt out cooking at home consistently? What keeps you inspired? What keeps you from getting bored? What keeps you interested? Whether it's a cuisine, whether it's entertaining, whether it's buying different ingredients. I also have a lot of cookware brands that I'm curious about. And I have that coming also on the vlog channel. If you haven't checked that out, I'll leave links to all of those things below. And I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, head on over to ChefEvelyn.com and join the Inside Dish. That's the place where you and I can stay connected, and where I can send you culinary inspiration, occasional recipes, and some food for thought. And if you're curious about what I'm cooking in between episodes, then follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for some more delicious behind the scenes. Don't forget to jump on over to iTunes and leave a review. And remember, it's absolutely okay to enjoy some gourmet every day. I'll see you next time.